Government agencies are continuing to adjust their technology strategies to support a hybrid work environment better. Hybrid work arrangements help agencies improve their ability to hire and retain talent and remain operational in the face of disruptions. However, the need remains for agencies to continue modernizing infrastructure to ensure secure access to resources. I'm Jake Williams, Senior Vice President of SLED here at Scoop News Group, and we're here to talk with Katie Savage, the Secretary of the Maryland Department of Information Technology and State CIO, Nick Perez, the CTO for Cloud at ThunderCat Technology, and Lloyd McCoy Jr., Director of Market Intelligence for TD Synnex Public Sector. Thanks for being with me, everyone. Happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So Lloyd, I'm going to jump in right with you here. Your organization has a unique pulse on the trends and the drivers of technology investments in the public and private sectors. What are you seeing in the way government agencies are trying to optimize their IT strategies to support today's hybrid workforce?
Yeah, so in optimizing IT strategies for hybrid workforces, what we're seeing are government agencies focused on creating flexible, sustainable, and secure work environments. And a big ingredient to this approach is the adoption of cloud solutions and virtual desktop infrastructure, which allow for secure and stable remote access to data and applications. And this shift is crucial in supporting a mix of in-office and remote work, and that ensures both accessibility and security. And so the integration of scalable cloud services is key because it enhances data accessibility while supporting device-agnostic solutions. And why this adaptability is important is because it addresses the unique cybersecurity challenges that are presented by hybrid work models. And that's reflected in our research, where we see agencies moving away from traditional VPN dependencies and emphasizing device security and digital signature technology to streamline remote work processes. And so a real-world example are the upgraded conference rooms and co-working spaces that are being designed to facilitate effective communication among hybrid teams. And these spaces are equipped to handle a blend of in-person and remote participants. And this reflects the evolving needs of today's workforce. And specifically with security, zero trust architectures, continuous updates, and multi-factor authentication are becoming standard practices to protect data integrity in these hybrid environments. And so what we see is this emphasis on cloud-based solutions combined with a focus on cybersecurity and sustainability that illustrates a comprehensive strategy for optimizing IT in support of a hybrid workforce.
And so Katie, I want to bring you in here. I mean, you're the CIO of the state of Maryland, the Secretary of the State Department of Information Technology. Give us a little bit of a sense of the scope of your agency's operations from an IT perspective. And what was your agency's experience like in adapting its IT platforms to support a remote workforce? I know you weren't in the CIO role when that big shift to remote work happened, but give us a little bit of that picture of what things were like.
Yeah, it's interesting. The scope of the state of Maryland IT enterprise and the ability to support people remotely are somewhat connected. I have spoken with a number of other state CIOs, and we're all experiencing a common challenge around the state of centralization of our IT practices. So you have some states on one end of the spectrum that are highly centralized. They're their only IT shop. And, most of us are sort of in the middle, or in some cases, all the way to the other end of the spectrum, which is to say, we manage sort of core services, but then there are what we call delivery centers. So the Department of Health, for example, the Department of Transportation, some of these larger agencies have kind of their own IT cores. And so for us, one of my challenges in coming in as the CIO is thinking through roles and responsibilities and cleaning up our product and service catalog so that it's flexible to adjust to, really kind of focusing my department on what are the gaps or what kind of the core services that all departments need, and creating tiers of service. And that, I think, is critical to, whether or not we're remote or hybrid. We have to think about meeting users where they are, whether they're a field worker, or they're in downtown office all of the time. So for me, it's really adjusting the product and service catalog. Along those lines, one thing that I will say is not necessarily optional to tap into is cyber, and we need to manage cyber centrally. So to that end, we've really bulked up, our Office of Security Management. We have a new state CISO, new director of state cybersecurity, which really builds on the great work that was done before me. And we're looking at a statewide solution for endpoint protection, for example. Thinking about making sure that all of the agencies are onboarded into our SOC. So, regardless of how other agencies manage their operations, whether they're, largely in the field or they're largely in an office, we're still providing them kind of consistent cyber strategies.
Katie, you hit a good point there, sort of on the status of centralization and being somewhere in the middle, and how that applies to a state like Maryland. And whether you're talking about filling in those gaps and creating that tiered service model, or whether you're talking about the cybersecurity piece, what issues are you trying to address sort of strategically when you look forward when it comes to this stuff?
Yeah, so for me, the biggest one is user-centered design. That's not only for, it's not only for Maryland workers, but also for our residents. So what I talk about with my team a lot is this idea of personas. What are Maryland residents who are business owners? What do Maryland business owners need? What do Maryland families need? What do caseworkers for the Department of Human Services need? And so we're really trying to focus on making things user friendly and accessible, which to the point of sort of remote work. If we're in this very distributed environment, whether or not you're in the office or not, we can't be reliant on manuals and training and sitting shoulder to shoulder with someone. We need to design things that are intuitive, and that really comes from I believe a focus on upfront discovery, user experience, user acceptance testing, prototyping, etc. So for me, that's a somewhat new practice in Maryland that I'm excited to bring into the state.
And Nick, I want to bring your perspective in here from ThunderCat Technology. The cloud was just a huge enabler for agencies to keep operating during the pandemic. And as we did this switch to remote work that we're talking about here, where are you still seeing agencies, whether they're state or federal or otherwise, still struggling to capitalize in the cloud today?
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar across state or federal agencies, right? It's certainly the pandemic, right? It accelerated their adoption of cloud services for many agencies in both those across the public sector. But challenges, they still persist, right? In fully capitalizing on the potential. I got a few areas where agencies are still struggling. I think security, right? I mean, it's not going to go away, but it's a better understood. But while cloud providers offer a full, robust measure of security measures, right? Agencies are still dealing with classifying their particular type of data. Which cloud should it move into? Should it be in commercial cloud? Should it be in a gov cloud, right? And they remain cautious about potentially, there is obviously televised a lot of breaches. There has been a lot of attacks that are going on. So, and ultimately being compliant, right? So there's security, even though obviously the tooling is out there, a lot of people are more mature, but that's still obviously an appropriate concern. Mostly for the federal side is FedRAMP, but there is state RAMP is accelerating pretty fast. But agencies are looking for tools, right? And they want those to have FedRAMP. They want them to have a base level of compliance. ISVs are working and really investing to make their tools available, but it's a slow process, right? ISVs really have no ability to predict when their tools are going to be FedRAMP authorized. So that's a challenging particular piece. Many of my customers, it's really the second question they ask if they get presented with a cloud-based solution is, do you have FedRAMP? When are you going to get it? And probably most of the answers are, no, I don't have it. And I ultimately don't have an idea of when I'm going to get it. So that caused a lot of I would say is a pause, in the conversation. Cost management, we spent a lot of time. Agencies move to the cloud in kind of a bit of a rush, right? They go there pretty fast and pretty excited. It's easy. That's the cloud providers have made it very, very easy to move into the cloud. So you kind of day zero, you move some stuff. Day two, you kind of optimize. And then you once you've got there, you're like, hey, what are my costs? It's an API call away to dramatically change your bill. And there's these marketplaces now where you can buy software through the marketplace and change your bill. So it's a little bit about making sure your procedures and your awareness of what's happening from a cost perspective. But I mean, to be honest, we've still got a skills gap. We really, really do. The people that are doing operating machinery and servers and hardware and tools on premise are just not that aware of what those are when they run in a cloud provider. You've got vendor management. I've got a service level agreement that I'm trying to meet, and ultimately just moving to a utility model, pay as you go, right? It's having the right skilled personnel who understand cloud infrastructure and manage it. I mean, it's crucial, and ultimately it's still a challenge.
And so Lloyd, and actually Nick, I'm going to want your perspective on this one too. But Lloyd, we'll start with you. Both your organization and Nick's organization work together in helping agencies do this kind of work, right? What challenges are you encountering that illustrate how that collaboration is helping to solve the problems that public sector customers are facing?
Absolutely. In our partnership with ThunderCat, we showcase how a solution provider and a distributor can join forces effectively to address federal agencies' challenges. And so solution providers like ThunderCat bring specialized expertise in system integration, solution design, and hands-on implementation. And distributors like TD Synnex Public Sector can provide additional resources, compliance knowledge, and access to essential tools. And so together, we offer a holistic approach to help federal agencies solve problems. We bridge compliance gaps, optimize budgets, ensure seamless integration, all while elevating the overall security posture. And so our collaborative effort ensures that federal agencies receive comprehensive, tailored AWS cloud solutions that precisely meet their unique needs. And it's a win-win partnership for agencies looking to tackle their toughest IT challenges.
And Nick, I'm curious your perspective on that as well. I mean, how's that collaboration really helping to solve some of those problems that your customers are facing?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great question. So I share scale, to be honest, right? We work with TD Synnex because they manage hundreds of thousands of accounts, subscriptions, tenants, and what they learn across managing that entire portfolio can then enable agencies, so I would say, who want to be not so much bleeding edge, but a fast follower to be able to get there very, very quickly, right? It's not, the cloud isn't that hard, it's just not that intuitive. So we help you gain those intuitive pieces. We use the term of best practices, but again, we've been working on this for 15, 16 years now. So there's a lot of educational knowledge and, obviously almost 2 decades of experience between the two companies that we bring to the table. So we can help agencies understand what they should be doing, kind of the long-term plan, and ultimately the short-term plan. Because there are some really quick wins. If you need to say, hey, I've got a certain percentage of my X in the cloud, whether that be SaaS, PaaS, or infrastructure, we can help you get there. We can help you go there at a short speed. We can help you go walk and then ultimately run. But we can help you do it with those bits and pieces that I say, meet the security compliance, understand what your costs are, and therefore make you reinvest, right? Make you be able to understand how you can spend the money, how you save money, and then when you take those savings and you re-put them back into you accelerating your adoption. The more you can adopt, obviously, you start to move your data, the applications quickly follow. And then you get a lot of, that's how you can realize the benefits of the cloud and focus in on their business and the mission, other than actually, maintaining servers and buying and procuring stuff, when you can ultimately, what I like to say, you can rent it or as long as you need it.
So Katie, I want to come to you to sort of wrap up the talk here and kind of pull all of these different things together. So not only are you currently the CIO of Maryland, but you have a tenure of career that spent time in the federal government and elsewhere in the public sector. So I want to hear from you about what's different about your IT strategies today compared to a couple of years ago when it comes to supporting the workforce. What are 1 or 2 lessons that you would offer to other public sector IT leaders about establishing a more agile and secure IT environment, sort of given the workforce needs that we're talking about here today?
It's a great question. In some ways, it's radically different. In some ways, it's not. As Nick and Lloyd were talking, also thinking about something that hasn't changed from over a decade ago when I was working in Chicago, which is, none of this works if you don't have access, skills, and equipment And so one thing that we need to continue to be focused on in Maryland, we run our own network, and I think we're missing some opportunities to partner with ISPs and community development organizations to think about how do we do last mile delivery, for example, in a way that benefits our Maryland facilities and also communities. That's something that hasn't changed. Same thing with user-centered design. I don't think that's something that changed. I think for me, the biggest strategy really keeps going back to cyber. And I think about when I was at DoD and the shift to remote in the pandemic. And I think we've talked about this before. We had a remote and distributed workforce. People all over the country. And so it very quickly forced us to, harden our cybersecurity posture. We're obviously sort of doing the basics, but thinking about, deploying, tools like Jamf, for example, to push out updates and making sure everyone had a YubiKey and sort of different things, different pieces like that. And that's a conversation I don't think we used to have before, this idea of centrally managed, sort of cybersecurity. So that's certainly a new strategy. The other piece, is, obviously through the advent of the cloud and being, likewise being able to centrally manage products and services. And that, it's not only about the business use, but, as a state CIO, we have such we have so much fiscal responsibility. We're squarely in charge of how efficient, accountability for how efficiently we're using IT resources. And so, when you're able to provision via the cloud, it's a game changer. When you're able to map your Active Directory in a way that provisions licenses, and sort of monitor use, that's a game changer in terms of our fiscal accountability as well. So for me, it's again, in reflecting conversations with other CIOs, I think the biggest shift we're seeing is moving away from just squarely a fiscal responsibility to really honing in on digital experience and cybersecurity. At the same time, our ability to be better fiscal stewards is also, is exponentially increased.
Katie, Lloyd, Nick, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having us.
A pleasure.